You're listening to Forward Faster, bite-sized insights for entrepreneurs.
Thanks for tuning in to the Forward Faster podcast. I'm Matt Foley, the Managing Director of Startup Incubation here at NextCorps, where we run the Greater Rochester region's largest and oldest startup incubator. One member of our community that we've seen grow leaps and bounds over the past few years especially is Kavyar, the company behind what is now the world's leading platform that photographers use to get published and that magazines use to source work. Today I'm with Kavyar Co-Founder Sean Charles Morris. He first joined us actually way back in January of 2021. And I know a lot has changed for Kavyar over the last 3+ years. So we're revisiting Sean's story today. So welcome back, Sean.
Thanks, Matt. Good to be here.
So I just gave a one-sentence description of Kavyar, but maybe if you want to tell us a little bit more for anybody that missed the first time we spoke, what's Kavyar all about?
Yeah, so I think I heard that sentence and I said, that's not actually what we are doing.
Uh-oh.
I think it's true. However, over the past few years, we've kind of shifted. We use the submission stuff to magazines as a traction strategy and kind of became somewhat beholden to that as a marketing language and so on. But I would describe Kavyar kind of more holistically as a place for creative professionals in the photography industry, such as photographers, models, makeup artists, and so on, is a place for them to enhance and grow their careers. And to do that, we help them connect with the right people to help them grow their networks and grow their careers.
Okay. So take it a step further. If I'm a photographer, what's it like for me on Kavyar?
So as a photographer on Kavyar, yes, you can submit work to get published, and we are absolutely the best at that. We protect them, through the transaction of doing that. We have a streamlined process and so on. However, what's much more important than that is that you can find anybody that you're looking for in the creative industry. So we have over 430,000 creative professionals, and that's a number that's growing and increasing in its growth. But you can find anybody that you need to really work with anywhere globally. So if you are a photographer from New York City and you have family in South Bend, Indiana, and you're looking to shoot when you get there, you can find somebody to shoot with there through our platform.
Okay, cool. So last we spoke, this was January of 2021. You were at just over 100,000 users, and now you're at over 400,000. What spurred that growth, and how have you managed that kind of growth?
Yeah, so I don't know if anything spurred that growth. I think we've had steady growth since that talk. In general, we've just improved so many things that you should do day one, like onboarding, learned a lot along the way, but also increased the number of publications that were on our platform, part of our growth strategy. And a lot of that was just steady growth up, along the way. Now we have new directions and some new initiatives as well to increase that, but just was steady the whole way.
Okay. To make this actionable for our listeners here, you mentioned improving your onboarding. What were some of the things that you did there to improve that experience?
Yeah, so we felt that onboarding should be frictionless early on. The problem with that is much of what we were doing was very complicated in that, we might have been a first mover when it comes to photographers getting published, like as an onboarding strategy. So we would have less friction, less steps, and so on, but then we'd plop you into a network without any explanation. And let's say you were coming in there to submit work to a magazine, that magazine, and we didn't really explain what we are and what we're about through that process. So in being frictionless, we increased confusion. So we took a different tactic where we said, hey, we're going to ask a number of steps, and we're going to assume that, and having more steps and more questions, that the people that are coming through are going to be highly educated about what we are in our network, and we're training them on how to utilize the network. And that they'd be okay with having more questions asked as long as it just felt like they're progressing. And those questions alluded to them having more value in the network. Like, for example, asking them goals. We early on established a goal step where we asked them, what are your goals in your career? And in those goals, we would let them know basically, like it was a way of educating them that these things can happen if you utilize the platform.
So adding a little bit of friction helped as long as it alluded to, what they were going to get and what their goals were.
Yeah, and a lot of our user discovery, all I needed to do is look at the onboarding date of the person I'm speaking to know how much they knew about our platform and what it can do.
Okay, great. So you've grown considerably since we last spoke, but what are some of the challenges you're facing at the moment?
One of the biggest challenges we started to face is when we initially grew the company, even before we started, we were always told, "Hey, think big." People in Rochester, New York, don't think big. Silicon Valley, everybody there thinks big. You need to think big, and we were doing that. And what we learned is that's really hard to, starting with like a gigantic idea and trying to accomplish it, versus thinking small, which is where we started to actually see some growth and some progress, is when we said, instead of getting 2 million people on our platform, let's just get like 1,000 people to really love what we're doing and get excited. So we started to shift our focus to a more narrow vertical and started to serve them better. And what happened with that is we saw a lot of growth, so that was great. So the challenge for us was we got obsessed with this idea of incremental improvements and enhancements, like achievable goals that would only provide incremental improvements. And what we've learned is as we've kind of grown this business, there's different levels and different stages. And who you are at different stages may need to change. And recently, I think we probably delayed our growth in a sense for maybe the past couple of years by kind of being focused on those incremental improvements. What we've realized, and the challenge is kind of getting past that and understanding what you need to be to get to where you need to go. Now is the time for us to have these massive, gigantic goals, ambitious goals, bet the company type of mentality. So that was, I would say, maybe one of the biggest challenges that we face. The other one would be, too, just getting enamored with the incremental stuff with the submission side of the platform. Like, it was very clear that it was a clear thing to communicate in our marketing messages. It was very good to convert people into the network. However, it really wasn't what our dream was and our total vision of the company was. But it's hard to kind of like leave that a little bit to go do the crazy big thing when you have really great stable growth and it's been a pretty safe company and a profitable company for a while.
So you, since we last spoke as well, you've developed, and I've seen a very slick mobile app. For those who are maybe thinking about going down that path, what advice would you have for people, building a mobile app?
It's really dependent on what you're doing. So for us, it's kind of interesting because we have a lot of photographers using our app, and we have a lot of magazine editors using our app, like the kind of basic users there, the kind of core users. And those people sometimes are okay with like desktop because they're editing their photos and so on. However, if you want like real engagement, real activity, you want to get somebody that is waiting at the doctor's office or in the grocery line, right? So for us, like increasing engagement and responsiveness and when messages are sent on the platform and so on, you just got to play in that area. It is something that you have to make a shift if you are like web app exclusive and then you switch to like mobile apps. There is a huge shift in mentality when you now are beholden to other platforms. And you would think that we would be sensitive to that because we provide a platform and transactions and so on, and we should understand the value of that. But then now we're on Apple and, at the mercy of Apple and at the mercy of Android. And initially it's really hard, depending on what you're doing, to get approvals. Like for us, there can be provocative content on the platform. There could be nudity and things like that. So, getting rejections and working through that rejections, we did have to do a lot more work than we thought to satisfy some of their needs. But in the end, I think we're a better network for it. So, that's one kind of overarching thing. Just get ready to deal with the approval process.
Okay. So it gave you that nice convenience and accessibility for users, except now you have the platform risk that you didn't have before.
Yeah. I mean, we could get shut down at any point in time. And there was a lot of things that made no sense. Like it depended on what review you got. But at a certain point, it did feel like Apple and Android are like, okay, these guys are cool. Let's like push them through every time we do a release.
So last time we met, I asked you, what advice would you give to a founder just starting out? And you said, you got to stick with it. You all had bootstrapped the business to where you are today, but it took you a very long time. Any other advice that you would give founders and teams that are just starting out now?
Yeah. So I think at that point, I do remember my psychological state, and I might have been pretty negative about the whole experience in that, like, maybe you shouldn't do it. We were just coming out of the pandemic at that point. Yeah, it could have been that. Everybody's been screwed up since then, and I think we're just recovering. But I think for me at that point, I didn't really understand maybe myself and why I was doing what I was doing. And my co-founders are all, in the same boat, so maybe all of us. But the thing about it is I discovered that this is the only thing I can do. Working a basic, super safe, well-paying job that maybe doesn't have a lot of impact is my nightmare.
Okay.
So, for me, I had to understand that this is who I am. Right now, if we sold the company, I retired, I would, let's say I became a gardener as a hobby, right? Because I need something to do when I retire. I'm sure within 1 month, I would have an app related to gardening and I'd have a whole nother business.
Okay.
My wife learned this before me. Honestly, she knew who I was before I did, but I'd say the advice I would give is just figure out who you are, because working a 9-to-5 and having a safe job and everything is awesome. Like if you're really smart, like there's people probably farther ahead of where I am in a lot of ways. There's a lot of sacrifice to doing this. Like I think I've heard a lot of people talk about it glowingly, like, oh yeah, it's okay. This and that. It's like, I'm sitting there saying like, what was their experience? Because my experience was I don't have certain relationships in my life that would have been really nurturing and amazing, maybe more valuable than any money.
Mm-hmm.
That I didn't have any time for, that are gone. I have the scars to prove like kind of what the struggle is. So, but my feeling was there's nothing else I was going to do. This is just my path. So if you're going to start this, don't waste your time if you're not that person.
It's a good segue to one of the questions I had, which is, if you weren't doing Kavyar, though, what would you be doing? It sounds like gardening is maybe top of mind, but
all I can do is do my own thing, start a business. Like I just know it's just going to end up that way. Like I see it in everything I do. So like I'm at a gym and I'm thinking of like their onboarding experience. Like, and I'm learning from their onboarding experience, like thinking through it and like, oh boy, they can improve it this way. And oh boy, if their competitor came in, they could do this and that. Like, I think there's people, like if you're at a party, it's the summer, you'll be at picnics. If you're at a picnic and you're having a few beers and you're talking with friends and somebody says, hey, it would be really cool if somebody built this. There's people that build it and there's people that don't. And I don't know who's smarter, honestly.
Okay. You mentioned the gym. Startups are a marathon, not a sprint, right? And you've been at it for a long time now. How do you stay mentally, and physically fit as a founder?
My goal is, especially now in my 40s, I've like had a cognitive decline. I'm not where I was brain-wise in my 20s. I got the experience and so on, but like my sharpness has been something I fought a lot. Like, and I've done supplements, I've done all kinds of stuff. What I've just learned is that I need physical adversity, physical struggle, like put my body into tough situations to increase mental focus. And I need to when you're doing this, you're not doing a job. It's more like a sports team, and it's about performance, and your performance is in your brain. So for me, I've just always needed to challenge myself. So I do a lot of stuff physically, like I'm up, I go to the gym every morning. Now, this is, by the way, a new thing. So this hasn't been like 5 years of this, but I go to the gym every morning, get up 5:30, and, I run, and then I lift, and then I know by 7:30 a.m. I've done more than a lot of people, and then everything's gravy. And then I also do martial arts. Like, I feel like I need to do scary things and get beat up a little. That's also part of my physical struggle. And the scariest of them all, I do Muay Thai, and that's usually pretty chill. Like, I know you're punching and stuff, but jiu-jitsu has been the thing that's been just absolutely the exciting new thing in my life. The only way I can explain it is it's absolute physical fear and struggle, because you fight another human being, and like literally you're choking each other and inflicting damage and pain on each other. So I'm really selling jiu-jitsu here, but like, I just relate it to startups, I think, for me and in my startup experience. You go into jiu-jitsu and you have no idea what the heck you're doing and just getting destroyed for months. And that was Kavyar, pretty much 6 years of total failure. And, you have loved ones that are like, what the heck are you doing? I had a wife that's like, why are you taking time away from me and spending your money on this? And it's only been recently that now, past 4 years that we've had success. So
yeah, absolutely. So, what's next for Kavyar?
So right now, we are realizing the original vision we had for the company from day one, which was after we left our initial accelerator program, and you remember it, you were part of it, Launchpad. Wow, it's been so long. I had to, took me a second. Yeah, so Launchpad. So we did the initial software accelerator program. It was amazing for us. We learned so much. We learned like the number one need that creatives had. And we realized we couldn't accomplish that goal because we couldn't get any traction. So now that we have the traction, we can go revisit that, which is that these creatives want to connect. And I think the best way I'd say it is like, we can say we're creating a job board, right? And that doesn't really do it justice. I think what we're doing is we're having a realistic interpretation of what's happening in the average artist's life. They're spending a ton of their time trying to connect and get their work out there. They're not able to spend a lot of time doing their work. And the sad thing is some people sell their work better than others, even if they're not better at doing the work and getting the job done. So what we found is there's just so much friction. There's friction between somebody that has an amazing opportunity. They have a vision of a creative work and how a project's going to go. They have an idea of maybe what type of people they need to do it, but they have no idea who those people are and where they are. And the people on the other spectrum have the same thing. They don't know how to get there. So what we're doing is reducing the friction between people that have opportunities and people that are perfect for those opportunities. And our goal is to make that an instantaneous connection.
Great. Well, thanks again for joining us, Sean. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in. If you are a startup or entrepreneur in the Rochester area, then I invite you to check out NextCorps at nextcorps.org, nextcorps.org. And you can search for and subscribe to the Forward Faster podcast there, as well as on Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube. And if you're a creative professional looking to grow your career, head to Kavyar.com, Kavyar.com. Thanks again, Sean.
You bet.